Hi, everyone. Just quick question. Who is from the business side? No one from the business, some people from the business. Who is more on the engineering side? Okay, more engineer and people from the business. Okay, great. One key topic that I want to address first is we are all working with API. You are working with API even if you don't know it every day. Every time, basically, that you share something on a social media, every time that you are speaking or publishing something, every time you book an hotel, do a search on Google or everything, even if we don't know it, and like my parent, grandparent, and everyone in my family rely on API every day to do something, to buy something online, to look for something, to send me a message, to discuss with me, to call me, pretty much everything rely on API. The main issue is every time when we are talking about API in a company, it's always about the technical part, is how do you build your API? How do you find a way for maybe people, but mostly developers to interact with your API? It's always technology side, engineering side, which cloud architecture, what do we want to do? But it's really never a business, like it's never seen as a way to open new business for your company to gain more, I don't know, market value, market share or something like that. I will just present myself. I'm Jean Burellier. I'm French, by the way. You can find me on GitHub, Twitter. I like to do a lot of stuff, but mostly linked to community and sharing, mentoring people, which is always something that is really good. I'm currently working for Sanofi, so just an healthcare company, a worldwide healthcare company. We are producing drugs and everything. And if I want to just look back a bit, you can guess that when you sell drugs online, vaccine and stuff like that, it's not really about engineering, at least not digital engineering. It's really a lot more about having good scientists being able to produce and to create new drug, vaccine and everything. But on the other hand, you also need quite a lot of knowledge to be able to find good way to sell your product to people. It's just basically selling part, but also how do you operate your now big data and machine learning solution to help everything to create new vaccine. You can rely on machine learning, intelligent artificial, and stuff like that. But so it's quite complete and quite a big topic on that. There is one key part that is always not really present in all companies, and for me it's really an issue. Mostly as a principal engineer and tech lead, I'm mostly working with technical people, but also being involved on a business part to try to find new solution, best solution to work with everyone, working with cybersecurity team, with pretty much a lot of team. And the main issue is when you create an API, and mostly how can you bring everyone that is around the table to just talk the same language? Because I can talk just technically about API for hours, days, and stuff like that, but I'm not sure it will be of interest for everyone. And on the same part, if you want to create something, it's great to have an idea, but is this idea feasible? Can you do it? Do you have the good information? Do you have the capability to do it and everything like that? So we should, when you create API on a project, be able to speak the same language, or at least to understand each other. Like, if you buy a car, you are able to ask I don't know, if it's using oil or gas oil, if it's an electric car, which color is the paint and stuff like that. You are speaking the same language as the people that will be selling your car, or if you talk about the same topic with someone else. With API, it's quite an issue, and I want to split this talk in three parts. First, a quick introduction just of API, and second part, how we can, I would guess, try to change the world with API, but first, how can we change the mindset of people that are building API in the company? And just really factual example on what we all should do, both on the technical part, on the engineering part, and on the business to foster this kind of good mindset of people working together to provide the best result at the end. Okay, so first part, like I talked already a bit, data is consumed both by human but also machine. Like a big part is not of data that is being shared and exchanged is not you as a human consuming or showing something. It could be bot online, other API or system calling another system to provide data to compute some other stuff. But for us, human, we use mostly smartphone, laptop, tablet, desktop, stuff like that. Main issue is for company, like if you talk about API with someone which is not at all working in engineering, they will be like, what is it about? Like in even in healthcare, API means something else. It's linked to the product and to the medicine itself. So if you talk in Sanofi about API to, I would guess, at least 60–70% of the people, they will think that you are talking about a medical term or medical terminology or stuff like that. Same if you are working with people in aviation or some other in airport, because it's also a technical term for, I don't remember which one, but for planes, basically. So that's not a common word that everyone knows. And also the second issue is, how do you say, how can we present it that way? For example, yeah, I would just switch this part. Just when you build an API or when you want to create a new product, no one is telling you that I need to build 10 different API. Each API will be doing step 1, step 2, step 3, step 10. Most of the time in a company it will be, I want to be able to sign a contract online or to send a contract to my customer to sign it, for him to sign it digitally. I want to share a picture, to send something online or everything else. You never think about the product, you think about the end product, but not how you will build your product. Whereas if you think about other systems, I'm thinking about car, for example, you will think for you, it's not just creating a new car. It will be to create a new car with specific conditions. My car should be able to, I don't know, be only working on electricity or working for, I don't know, 100, maybe not, I was going to say 100,000 kilometers, but even more or less, depending on how you want to count it. So the main topic is you really define what you want and you have a lot of information. And I know we are trying to be agile, to be able to shift and to change and to adapt. But agile is not being able to change everything today, tomorrow, and next week. You still have to plan what you want to do, how you want to do it, and you can change some of the stuff and update, yes. An API on itself, it's always something that is hidden, and it's for most of the people, it's still very complex. But for every company, API is your core system. If you remove your API, most of the time, I would guess right now, if you remove your API, all your system won't work anymore. For us in an healthcare company, you can technically still produce medicine and vaccine and stuff like that, but it will be weirder maybe to sell it or to send information about it to external people or patients, stuff like that. If you are working for Amazon, you remove the API part, Amazon is not working anymore because you are not able to search for a product, to buy for a product, or to do anything else. And it's the same, I guess, for every company that is currently using digitalization to provide information, to work on data or everything else. And if you remove, basically for a company, you can have an API without a front-end application, without a mobile application, without a way to display the information itself in a good manner. But if you remove the API, your front-end just becomes useless. It's just a blank pages, maybe there is a good design, but it's just a blank canvas. You have no information, people won't come to your website for that. So API should be considered as a core of your company. It should be considered as a product because some people will use maybe your front-end interface, but if you have public API, other people won't even know about your front-end and what you can do with it, but they will know and will be able to interact with your API directly. So your API, in that case, is a product, and it should be considered as a product. So with that in mind, so API are a product, or at least should be considered as a product, and the main issue is most of the time it's not. In your company, for the people that are here, do you have, are API considered as a product, or is it just completely discarded from the business? No one? Do you have, I don't know, do you have in your company people that know about API outside of the engineering team? Do you have people selling API as a product to other company? Okay, maybe, okay, specific case, I guess. But for most of the company, even if you have API that are publicly available, maybe you didn't thought about how you want to speak about monetization, for example. Do you want to have your API being freely available to everyone if they just register on a platform or not? Do you want to have quota? Maybe do you take a personal fee on each specific operation that could be done or stuff like that? And I will just take the same example as Mehdi talked about yesterday, is today we can all take our phone and check the weather. We'll just look for weather in Singapore. You will have your information, it's 31 Celsius degrees, that's great. For us, it will just depend what I will be wearing today. Should I take an umbrella or not, something like that. But for a business that could be selling something outside, it will also change and drive how they are working with just basically their business. Should they bring more stock, less stock? Should I have more people working on an external place or something like that? It will impact their business, finance, and bottom line, everything. So we need to change and to have people in our company to change how API are being seen and why API are really valuable to a business, to a company for a lot of stuff. Just a quick part also about just API first, because I think it's completely linked and it's the best way to approach that, would be API first. It's just a principle of when you design or need to build something, the first part that you need to think of is what should be my API? How should I design my API to answer my need? And in a company, if you start working with that, you will see that really, really fast. You will start to be working as some kind of governance API group, because you want your, I don't know, user object to be the same across every API that you will be producing. You want the same drugs or the same company object to be the same. You want to standardize your API. And also with the mindset of API first, the main idea is to treat them as first-class citizen. And if it's a first-class citizen, it's way easier to push that as being a product for your company. It's a way, okay, we also have a front-end application to present and display something, but the core product itself, it's not the presentation. It's what I'm selling. It's a data part. It's a way to interact with my data. Basically, it's my API. And for that, also just quick feedback about API first is basically designing the contract. Could be an open API, a Swagger, or every other standardization you want to use to have people to work with that. Also, which is really interesting and a lot of people forget, is if you're working in a big company, I'm thinking maybe tens, thousands of people and even more, most of the time you are working in silo. Which means maybe you will have people in France working in a product, people in Singapore working in another product, people in the US working on a third one, and most of the time people don't communicate. And that's a big issue, because maybe you will need a service or an API to send email, but I guess you are not the only one that need to send email. People in France will need to send email, people in the US also. And not thinking about API as a product means that everyone will try to recreate something that was already present in the company. So you will end up with a lot, 10 times the same solution to do the same stuff, which is quite bad as an engineering, at least engineering point of view, but also cost point of view, because you are paying way more in fees and in a lot of topics. And most of the benefit of talking about API first approach, so that is the first part, is really about the more technical engineering part of doing API first, but there is also some interesting point. First one would be speed to market. Why? Because when you start to have, after let's say 6 months, maybe a year, you start to have a good set of service and API you can reuse, and you don't need to develop them again, which means that if you already have a service to send an email, if you need on a new project to send an email, it's not 3 weeks of development, testing, people from the business that need to validate a new SaaS product to send email or something like that. It's just technically 2 lines of code. It's just your URL of your own service. You send them the body or all information that are needed, and that's all. And it's working. So, which means in less than 1 hour, you can have a new solution being implemented, a new feature for a client, for a business being implemented, and not spending weeks or more, because for some company it's not weeks, it's months to do that. And it also moves to a more product-oriented part for the API, because now your API become your core solution for your company. It's not, I have 10 websites. It's, I have APIs that are able to provide information for hundreds of websites, for also internal customer, external customer, for everyone. We can define API, I already talked a bit about it, OpenAPI 3.1, which is the latest version. You can use YAML and JSON to use that, but one of the main issue, and I want you to understand about it on that topic, is API should be considered as a product, not your final solution being a front-end application, a mobile application, or something that display some information. What's important for your company is what you can build with your service, what information you are able to access quickly, and if your information are valuable to be maybe linked to something else. If you're able to do that, then you almost won, or at least people will start to update their mind, to change their mind, to see, okay, my API are really important, the design of my website, it's great, I love, okay, user experience is great, but it's not really my product. You can change the color, you can change your theme, people will still be using your solution. If Amazon tomorrow, like inverse or remove the orange color, you will still use it. If you use it because behind Amazon there's a lot of API, it's really easy to use, and people in 2 clicks can order something, have it delivered, it's paid, it's working fine. So how can we continue to build this bridge between business and engineering, which is most of the time the hardest part, how to have the 2 worlds cooperate, work together, and like I said earlier, to be able to talk the same language. For me, there is quite a few things that could be really important. First, and I forgot I still had that slide, so I will do a quick comeback on this one. Just also, having your API as a product, it's interesting because first, it's seen as your product, but it allows you to, like I said, to be faster when you develop a new service, a new feature, or a set of features. But it also allows you to have way more data, because you will see what service your team or your people in your company really use or don't use. So you can discontinue service or discontinue to use some data or some database or some solution that are not used anymore. And it's even more important if you open this API to other, let's say, external customer, could be other company or just public people, because most of the time it will create new engagement, because people will play with your API, but maybe combine it with an API from another people or another company or something like that. So that's a good stuff. You can also get more data, like I said, and like I said, allow other business to rely on your API, which means then you can build a monetization solution on top of it. Because if you are, let's say, a bank or an insurance company, maybe you want to provide an easy way for other company to have a grading system on some specific operation. And if people sign a contract, maybe you will take, I don't know, a 10% cut because they were using your service or something like that. It can really depend. Easy way, so from the engineering side, what we need to do to be more open with the business, because the business don't care if we talk about REST, GraphQL, gRPC, JavaScript, Node.js, C#. That's great. I love to talk about that, but it's not useful to everyone. But it can be really important for us when we develop API and we provide API to also be not just wait business to ask for information. Just be proactive. We need to think about analytics and observability on our solution. Is this new API, is it used? Are we using every endpoint with I don't know, if one endpoint is used 99% of the time and one is used 1% of the time, maybe we can discontinue one endpoint. Or maybe we should improve the other one. Or we need to have data and to be able to provide data to our user, but also to our business. Also, we need to report success and failure, because just being like, yeah, this API don't work because this another team didn't do a good work, it's not a good way to interact and to work. We need people to be able to discuss correctly with the business and to create this kind of, I would guess, safety net with people and with the business, that the business can trust us when we say something, and it could be a good news or bad news, basically. And also, do not hide complexity. I know a lot of people that when the business is talking to them, yes, we can do it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. 6 months later, it's not done because they weren't able to find that the business really wanted a lot of stuff. It was just like, I had this discussion yesterday. We want to create some kind of CMS system to have people from the business being able to just create a new article, so maybe also have an image, have a video and something like that. And some people on another team I'm working with are like, yeah, it's quite easy. We can, like, text is easy to store and everything. Even a video on itself, it's easy. Main issue is, does a business really want only to store the video and have people being able to click on a graph to just display the video, or do we want also to compute the video itself, to resize it, create multiple resolution like Netflix do and stuff like that? And no one had this answer because no one thought about asking it, and it changed drastically the need of your customer and your client. And from the business part, it's also thinking about the engineering part not as basic people that are just here to build something without knowing anything about the business or stuff like that, but we should be involved because we know how a system can work and how are the limitations of the system that we are building. Maybe we are building a system that can handle, I don't know, 1 million users per day. Great. But if the business wants to open to a new area, and in this area you will have 10 million users using it, you know your system will crash. And even if the business say, yeah, we want that to work, maybe it's not feasible just technically. That's another part. And also be present for the business, should be present for the testing phases, because we are writing most of the time test, unit test, integration test, end-to-end testing, stuff like that. But we should also rely on the business testing their own application and what they want to do, which is really important, and how we can reuse that. Because the main issue, and which is great also, is if you involve the business, and you should involve the business to build with you your open API. Because I was working in banking and also insurance. Main issue is if some people already work in insurance before, you know there is a lot of specific code, area code, like internal code that you don't know about if you never worked with them. And there is no documentation, it's just some people that worked here for the past 20 years know about, like a 2-letter code, but no one else know about. And if you see that, you'll be like, is it useful? Is it not useful? Should I keep it? Should I remove it? And stuff like that. So trying to involve the business to work with you on creating, just basically creating and working with you to create a contract, your API contract, is a really good way to first involve the business, to be able for you as engineer to think about how can we be sure that every field is really mandatory or useful and it's not like unused data, for example, because they worked with mostly the previous application or every information that was sitting in the database in another way. So they know how things are stored and how things can be used when they interact with a customer, with an external client. And also just have the business being involved in testing, and it's quite easy to do. I will just, in 30 seconds, I think you all know about Postman, right? One of the good stuff for this one is it's just a basic query on Postman, and basically I'm doing nothing. I'm just querying the GitHub API with my nickname, so I do have a result, and that's great. business should be testing API. If building an API is a product, then the business should be testing the product and not just a way to display some information. Front-end should be tested too, but so do the API. And just having the business querying some basic HTTP call URL and just training them. You will have a training part to do, which is, for me, it's really important to also have people being able to share knowledge. Just using just a basic test solution, it will allow your business to first know about what your API will be sending back, but also for you just to reuse that part of Postman to generate external collection and to export that and to reuse them in your testing. And that's quite easy to do. It's just a JSON object, you parse it, and you can include it in your testing solution. And basically, that's all. So yeah, so if you have some question about it, about how you can improve it, how you can include that in your company or some feedback, specific feedback, go ahead. Thank you.